what if these rock stars that have all passed away too soon and tragically in life, what if they really didn't pass away? Like, what if they faked their deaths? And what if we made them secret agents to save the world?
Welcome to Story Power, a bi-monthly podcast where my guests and I chat about stories and creativity in all different styles and formats. My name is Lucinda Sage-Midgorden, and my goal is to promote what Dale Carnegie stated in his famous book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. He said, instead of condemning people, let's try to understand them. Let's try to figure out why they do what they do. That's a lot more profitable and intriguing than criticism, and it breeds sympathy, tolerance, and kindness. To know all is to forgive all. It's my firm belief that the goal of most creative people is to try to understand themselves and others. That's what makes artwork of all kinds so compelling. But more than that, the personal stories of my guests promote understanding as well. Roger C. Schenck, a cognitive scientist, said, human beings are not ideally set up to understand logic. They are ideally set up to understand stories. It's my hope that Story Power will help us understand each other better by sharing the stories of my guests. So today's on Story Power, it is episode 110, and I am talking to Jay Watson and Kyle Wilcher. And they have written a book that the title of the book made me laugh out loud. So welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jay, I'll ask you. Jay, who came up with the idea for the book?
Well, I would say the final product is a combination of both of us, but Kyle had the initial idea. We talk about movies and we talk about all kinds of things, and we have for over, gosh, Kyle, I don't know.
We're pushing 30 years. We're pushing it. We're getting close.
27, 28 years of talking about film and talking about books and talking about just anything pop culture art.
Yeah.
And every once in a while we'd have an idea. We think we could do something better. And, every creative person thinks that at some point, I can do this better.
Yeah.
And Kyle had this idea that was kind of birthed out of, a little bit of our upbringing, and our age. We grew up with the National Enquirer sitting on the grocery store counters, where you'd see about all these crazy things that they make up, these conspiracies, and add that to a real article that Kyle saw about a plane disappearing in the swamp. And he kind of birthed this idea, and he just said, hey, here's an idea. Like, what if these rock stars that have all passed away too soon and tragically in life, what if they really didn't pass away? Like, what if they faked their deaths? And what if we made them secret agents to save the world? And I told him, I was like, Kyle, I don't think that's $1 million idea. Like, I think that's $1 billion universe. I mean, that is so much fun. And so I pushed him a little bit for us to try to maybe write it. And then finally I was just like, hey, let me write the first couple chapters and we'll see what happens. And it just kind of exploded from there. We got kind of captured by the idea, the concept, and just had a lot of fun writing it.
Yes. So Jay, Kyle, tell me the title of the book, and my listeners, and also, how did the writing process with two of you work out? How did you do that?
Yeah, so the book is titled The Dead Rock Stars. You got to have the definite article there in front of it, The Dead Rock Stars. But it was great. One of the beautiful things about Jay and I and our friendship is we have such a balance of personality and of giftedness and of interest. We're interested in the same things, but sort of like different elements of the same things. We have we just have a great balance. And so when Jay kind of really encouraged me to, like, hey, let's do this together. Let's try to write a book together. I said, great. And so he wrote the first 2 chapters, and I read them and I loved them so much. I was like, well, let me write the next 2. And so I wrote the next 2. And then we sort of looked at each other and went, we need to make a plan, like, if we're going to do this, we need to make a plan. So we got together and had a whiteboard, and we had sticky notes, and we had, all kind of things. And we just sort of said, how are we going to make this work? We had a idea where we wanted to start because,
Mhm.
we'd already sort of written that. And then we had an idea where we wanted to finish. It wasn't like fully firm in concrete, but we just sort of had this idea. This is where we want to get to. And so we just kind of mapped it out little by little. We'd write maybe 3 to 4, maybe 6 at the most chapters at a time,
Uh-huh.
making assignments. You write this, you write this. And we'd have like a sentence description. This chapter needs to be about one sentence or even maybe one
Mhm.
phrase.
Mhm.
Mhm,
Mhm.
And
mhm.
so that's really all we'd do. And if the chapter, like if Jay had to write the chapter, then I would write the following chapter. I'd sort of wait, and he'd give it to me, and I'd read it, and then I'd write, based on the idea of where
Mhm.
he took things. And so, but when it all came down, after he wrote a chapter, or after I wrote a chapter, we would exchange and write, and then we use Google to sort of have a color code.
Mhm.
Like green is good, we love this. Yellow is maybe let's think about this, and red was like, I don't know, man. We may, I don't know
Might
about this.
might have to cut that out.
Yeah, that may not make the final cut. But
But it
so
was even interesting. It was even interesting there, though. I'll interrupt you real quick. Like,
yeah,
because we were writing fiction, even the Reds were kind of like, all right, pitch your case. And we would get to
Ah,
kind of lay out what we wanted to do
uh-huh.
and why. And if it once we determined two things in writing: tone, and then um, the goal of what it is we're going for, kind of where the end goal was. And
Mhm.
once we kind of set up those things, we talk about that. And once we kind of figured out the tone, we just ask that question: does this fit within our what we're trying to accomplish, what our goal is?
Right.
And if Kyle had a good argument, or if I had a good argument, there were times where we would acquiesce to the other just simply because it's fiction. I mean, if we want to tell our story the way we want to tell it, like, we don't,
Right.
unless we just feel like it hurts the goal of what we're trying to do, or it doesn't meet
Right.
the tone. There was
Yeah.
very few times that some of the red things just didn't make it unless we talked about it and we're like, yeah, you're right, that's dumb. And that happened a few times.
Right, yeah. Now, it came out in November of 2023. So, have you had very many sales and reviews and that kind of thing? That reviews always help. I know because I have a book that doesn't have very many reviews. Um, so, how's it going?
well, we actually had a conference call with our publisher, Morgan James Publishing, just a few
Oh.
weeks ago,
Uh-huh.
and they gave us a resounding, "You're doing better than average." So,
No, really, that is good. That is good.
yeah, we've had so many kind friends and family who have read the book and recommended the book that you jump on Amazon or Barnes and Noble, and we've got quite
Mhm.
a few reviews there, and most of them are legitimate. Most of them are
Yeah.
not, people just being nice to us.
Yeah, right. Yeah, legitimate reviews, you need those, yeah. Yeah, so it's in a way, it's good that you had a publisher. My husband and I independently published my
Yeah,
book, and the marketing part's the difficult part.
yeah.
Jay, how do you feel about the marketing part? Are you good at that? Are you too good
uh
at that?
well, Kyle and I Kyle and I have like, it's a very interesting creative
Mhm,
partnership, a creative
mhm.
marriage. Like, I tend to be the one who's chasing after whatever the new thing we should try and do. And Kyle is usually I don't know about that, man. Like, that's kind of where it starts whenever we talk about, I don't know about that. Well, man, let's think about it. That usually means, why, what are you doing? Whenever he says, let's think about that, it just means, nah, I'm not doing that. And so, um, I tend to kind of push on a direction marketing, or tend to push on a direction of what we should do.
Mhm,
And if it goes well, Kyle is usually the one who runs with it. And then I'm the one who's
mhm,
like, all right, what's next? And so that's worked out
mhm.
well for us to have a little bit of both, um, consistent steadiness and just a little all over the place. I love marketing. It would be a lot easier if we had a lot of money to market.
Yeah.
But Morgan James, does a great job of giving the publisher the author tools to learn how to
Mhm,
self-publish and learn how to
mhm,
do things very cheaply and
mhm.
and inexpensively, and that's helped us quite a bit. This is probably, I don't know, Kyle, are we up to 50 podcasts yet?
Well, not quite there, but yeah, they recommended the service that brought us together through Podmatch, and
Mhm.
um, and so that's something we've decided, hey, let's try to do this, to run with Podmatch. And I think we are pushing 30 though, because every
Oh,
time we jump on a podcast and chat with someone, Lucinda, it's like we don't go run in the same circles with you. We live in a different part of the country, all this
Right.
stuff. So it's
mhm,
like this gives us the opportunity to tell people about our story, about our book that we would never in a million years, just
Right.
happen to run into.
Yeah.
And so we love it. We love the chance just to, to share our story and let folks know about it. And we've tried to expand our horizons a little bit, so sometimes we're on a podcast that may not be like, this one's really good because it's about, authors and writing, and
Hmm.
it's right in our wheelhouse. But sometimes we've been on like music podcasts and movie podcasts, and a
Yes.
lot of different things, just because we're really trying to
Yeah.
expand the reach of just beyond our circles, and and what we can, who we can reach on social media. We want to try to get beyond that.
Right. Yeah, I'm a guest as well as a podcaster on Podmatch. And I don't know how they found me, but I think my podcast was maybe about a year old and I got an email from them. It was when they were first starting, I think.
Mhm.
And I am so glad that I joined because I have met the coolest people. And, sometimes they don't, you know, they're not really authors or anything like that. But uh, I started off with before Podmatch with my students because I taught theater,
Oh,
students,
cool.
colleagues at the college, that kind of thing, talking about all kinds of stories. But yeah, I'm trying to expand too, not just with stories, but with podcasts that talk about stories or with guests. Cause I had a CPA not too long ago as a guest, but he's somebody who wants to help people with their retirement. And man, can't everybody use that? Especially
Yeah.
yeah.
people who are creative. They need somebody to advise them, you know. So so I wanted to say, I think it was you, Jay, that said that you still love Will Smith. Was it you that said that?
Yes, yes, I did. Yes, I
Yes,
did.
I still love Will Smith too. I wanted to
Oh,
tell, yeah,
he's the best.
yeah, really. Um, and you know, I was watching. My husband and I were watching a movie that he was in that we had never heard of before. It was a fantasy kind of movie,
Mm,
or maybe it was a television series. And they
hmm,
said, "Oh, they were going to do another season, or they were going to do a sequel movie." And then it got put off for one reason or another. And then when the slap thing happened at the Oscars, they decided to cancel it. And I go, okay, I'm going to go look at his filmography. Oh my gosh. He had like 45 things he was producing. I said,
yeah.
oh, I guess that slap didn't really hurt him too much.
No, it just, he got a break. He got a little sabbatical off of,
Yeah.
filming and hopefully
Yeah.
some anger management, and he'll be fine. But he's a
Yeah.
gifted
Yeah.
fella. I
Yeah.
enjoy every aspect of Will, including his social media. He's a lot of fun to follow online.
Oh, I haven't followed him online. I'll have to
Oh,
do that.
yeah.
Yeah.
He's just fun to watch, fun to check him out.
Yeah. Yeah. Really. And then Kyle, I loved that you said that you can name any 80s and 90s movie and the date that it came out. And I thought, well, I know a lot about movies that I've never seen, but I can't tell you the date that it came out. So I
Well,
want I want an example.
okay, this is more aspirational, let me just say, but I just have this ability to like remember, sort of either
Mhm.
where I was when I saw a movie or
Mhm.
when it was. And there's another thing, when I was a child, we didn't have cable television. We just had the
Right.
basic, 6 or 7 channels that like they had in the
Right.
80s. And
Mhm.
we used to get the Sunday paper, and in the Sunday paper was always the weekly television guide. And
Right.
in the back of the television guide, they would list every movie that was showing that week and what channel it was on, what time it was on.
Mhm. Mhm.
And it always had like a sentence or two description and the year it came out. And so I promise you, every Sunday, I would read what movies are coming out this week,
Mhm,
the sentence description, so I'd know a little bit about it, so I could talk about it if somebody else, but
mhm.
I've probably not seen, 80% of the movies that I could tell you a sentence about just because I read
Yeah,
those things so much when I was a
right.
kid. And I
He,
remember, Back to the Future came out in 1985. I have
That's
seen that
right.
one a million times, but,
Yeah.
you know,
he's pretty good. Why don't you give him a let's see, give him a test, see how he does.
Oh my gosh.
oh
Okay.
boy.
I'm gonna have to because I'm older than you. And there were like 3 or 4 channels, no cable, no nothing on the horizon. And yeah, and we got the TV guide. And I remember
I'll
I
I'll
would go
I'll
through
say
that.
one. I'll say
Say
one,
one. Okay,
and
good.
then you can be thinking about what you want to say. Okay, Kyle. This is one I've never asked you,
Oh
and I'm
gosh.
really
Okay.
curious to see how you're going to do.
All right.
Short Circuit.
Short Circuit was 1986.
Oh,
Is that right?
He's right.
he's right.
That's
Are
infuriating.
you
Okay,
looking at Internet Movie Database and
He
I
might be.
just
I'm
looked at it.
not.
I
oh
just
I'm
looked at
not.
it.
yeah, yeah.
I
What
can tell
about
you this.
I'm
What?
trying to think of what about the Last Starfighter?
Oh gosh.
Ooh, Last Starfighter. I believe that was 85. I believe. Am I right?
1984. You were close.
Oh,
Oh, it's
close,
close.
close. I
Ah.
remember that movie, that was good. So,
You got one?
you got one from the '80s and '90s that was your one of your all-time favorites, Kyle?
Oh man, gosh, so many. I mean, I know this is audio only podcast, but I love Star
Oh,
Wars.
yeah, I forgot you love Star Wars. Oh, yeah.
Star Wars is my jam. So yeah, 1980 was Empire Strikes Back, 1983 was Return of the Jedi.
Mhm,
Those
mhm.
were probably two of the first five, maybe four movies I ever saw in the movie theater. So I will always remember those. But
Oh, wow.
the
Yeah,
90s, of course, that's when I was a teenager. And so
yeah.
we would finally, when I was able to drive and go to the movies and stuff, it was Forrest Gump, I think, 1994
Oh,
was the first
yeah.
movie I saw three times in the movie theater. It
Oh,
was so
wow.
good. I just kept going back.
Oh, yeah, that is a good movie, you're right. So, Jay, did you go with him? Do you guys live in the same city?
Well, we live in different suburbs of the same city. We
Oh,
both
okay.
live in Nashville, Tennessee, but Kyle's
Uh-huh.
about an hour north of me. And so,
Oh, okay.
um, I'd say from, man, I don't know, 96 until probably 2003, maybe.
Mhm, mhm.
I'd say the majority of any of those movies, Kyle and I either saw together or saw within a day or two of each other.
Yeah,
And
Yeah.
and then did you talk about them?
all we did is
Oh,
talk about them. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, like,
incessantly. Yeah.
yeah, it would be a thing where Kyle would want to pick apart a plot point, and I'd be like, "Man, it's just a movie. It was awesome." And then I'll go back and watch the movie a year or two later, and I'm like, Kyle was right." And I don't usually like to tell him
Uh-huh.
that, but more times than
Yeah.
not, I'm in the spirit of the moment and just happy to be there, happy to be watching it, and I don't have as critical as an eye right there in
Yeah.
that moment. But yeah, we got into a love of bad film for quite a while as well. I think it started with maybe Highlander, and I think it ended with Borat. I think we went all the way from A to Z there as far as just being willing to go see crazy dumb movies and see why they were dumb and just, you know.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
I
Yeah,
did
I
go
think
see
we've
Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. I don't think I went in the theater to see that, Kyle, and I'm not ashamed of it, and I don't think you went.
no,
But
I
I
saw
do have a
that. I saw
I
it.
have a
Well, I think we saw it when it came on,
oh yeah, I
streaming.
went out in public and watched that film, and
Yeah.
I regret nothing.
Yeah.
so I have a tremendous story about that movie.
Oh, good.
It came out the same time as Steven Spielberg's Lincoln. The one with Daniel
Right.
Day Lewis,
Right.
super serious. You
Right.
know, Well, and my mother and father were on a airplane to go to India. My sister and her family actually live in
Oh.
India, so they were going to
Oh.
fly to India to visit
Uh-huh.
them.
Uh-huh.
And she had the in-flight movies, and it was all free. You just pick the menu, and so she
Mhm.
picked, this movie about Lincoln, and she watched, the first half hour, whatever. She's like, I don't know, this isn't very historically accurate, so she turned it down or turned it off. And later, she was telling me about the plane and the movie. I was like, "Well, what movies did you watch?" She said, "Well, I watched this one about Abraham Lincoln. I was really excited about it because I know that the guy won the Oscar, but he was just like killing vampires and stuff. I don't think that was right. And I was like, Mom, you watched Abraham Lincoln's Vampire Hunter, not Steven Spielberg's Lincoln, you know. So it was
Right.
just great. So much fun.
That is a fun story. Yeah. Well, I grew up in a household where we had movie night and we couldn't just say, "Oh, it's a great movie." No.
Oh yeah.
Dad and
You had to
mom
defend it.
wanted to know. They wanted to know who were our favorite characters, why did we
Yeah.
like them, what was our favorite part of the movie, and then we got to ask questions. I don't understand why this character is doing what they're doing, and then
Yeah.
they'd say, "Well, maybe because of this or this." So that's how I got into theater, actually, eventually.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Oh, that's
so
great.
I totally love that you two do that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we've watched more movies together, than probably just about any other activity that we've done together over the years.
Ah,
We've been to
yeah,
midnight shows. Like when a
yeah.
movie first comes out. So yeah, we've had a lot of fun
What do we
over
go
the
see? What
years.
do we go see at midnight?
Well, we saw all the Star Wars prequels. We were at every one of them just about when it would,
Yeah.
came out at
Oh.
midnight, and
Mhm,
people
mhm.
were dressed up like Chewbacca and stuff. And yeah,
Yeah,
Right.
that was when we were young though, right?
that was when we were young people. Yeah.
Yeah. Right, yeah. So have you seen any have either of you seen the, like, television shows, spin-offs of Star Wars?
Yeah,
And
we've
what
watched probably all of them, I
Oh
think. I
yeah.
mean,
I've actually watched more than Kyle has, believe it
I
or
think
Really?
he
not.
has, yeah.
I've seen all the
Yeah.
Clone Wars. So that's the discerning difference because there
Oh.
is an excessive amount of Clone Wars cartoons and I've seen all of them.
Yeah,
I have a
my
daughter I have a daughter who rivals Kyle in her fandom of Star Wars and so she makes me sit down and watch. In fact, she made me sit down and watch 2 episodes of Bad Batch last night. So I'm hammering through that right now.
You're
Oh
caught
my
up.
goodness. Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. So, w- I had a podcast guest once. She's sort of a friend of mine on Facebook, and she said, "Yeah, I work at my side job is working at Walmart. My full-time job is writing. So do you guys have side jobs that you do to
Yeah,
uh
you wanna go first,
Kai?
Jay?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll go first. I'm currently working in sales and service for a car wash manufacturer and
Oh,
chemical sales, and so
uh-huh, uh-huh.
I get in my car and I go visit these fancy express car washes that have popped up everywhere, and we talk about chemicals and service, and that's kind of my current job at the moment. Before that, I did close to 25 years in nonprofit work,
Uh-huh.
and have a background in pastoral care, pastoral counseling, and writing in that area. So I did that for a long time.
Oh, wow, yeah. Okay, religious studies was my first degree. Um,
Okay.
Oh,
but
cool.
yeah, and I did take a some pastoral counseling kinds of classes. But it was in the 70s when I graduated, 79 actually, and women weren't ministers very often. And I wasn't really into that anyway. I was into the stories. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
I did use a lot of my counseling, pastoral counseling things when I was teaching. That's how I
Yeah.
used.
I mean, it's a very valuable tool all the way around. I find that um, people generally lack in communication when there are
Mhm.
problems. And I
Mhm.
think they also are unequipped to handle themselves emotionally
Mhm.
when trauma hits or when
Yeah.
difficulty hits. They haven't had to deal with some of it, and so when it happens, especially if they're a little bit older, it's a real struggle for them to kind of understand their worldview gets rocked. And
Yeah.
I really enjoyed walking through life with people.
Yeah. Right. Because, when your belief system is totally crushed, which kind of happened to me when I was doing religious studies,
Hmm.
especially since I was harassed at every meal by these Bible thumping guys who said I needed to
Mm-hmm.
change my major. Uh,
Mm.
it's devastating. It can be devastating. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Kyle, what do you do?
Well, I have not always done this. I do not have professional training for this. It's something that just sort of fell into my lap and something that I have just loved. But I actually now I'm an editor of books.
Wow.
Um,
Cool.
yeah, it sort of happened during the pandemic. I used to before I worked for a
Mm.
ministry where we would help. Uh, people whose homes were in disrepair,
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of kind of like Habitat for Humanity, but not Habitat for Humanity.
Mhm,
It's,
mhm.
where students, teenagers would come and they would help restore people's homes and just help bring people hope when they were just in a really desperate situation. That ended during the pandemic,
Mm.
and because I had handled all of the written materials for that ministry for so long, at my current job, they said, "Hey, why don't you try the publishing area of our work,
Uh-huh.
working in editorial work?" And so I just said, "Sure." And it's one of those cool things where it was not, like I said, anything that I ever had any training for. I had some,
Mhm.
obviously, I mean, I've co-written a book here, so I hope I have some, giftedness when it comes to writing.
Right.
Um, Writing and editing and so forth, but it was nothing I ever, set out to do. And it kind of fell in my lap. And the way
Uh-huh.
I've described it to my boss is like, it's like someone handed me a bicycle and said, "Here, ride this thing," even though I didn't know how to do it. And I
Mhm.
got on it and I learned that I could do it. I was like, I
Right.
already know how to do this. And so it was really
Yeah.
pretty cool. And it's been a great fit for me, something I've really, really loved. And it's been super helpful for what Jay and I have done with the Dead Rock Stars,
Right.
trying to come at it from an editorial perspective. It's hard to edit yourself, I'll be honest,
Right.
but coming at it from an editorial perspective and thinking of how do we make this in the best shape that it can be. I'm a content editor, not a production editor or a proofreader. I'm
Or a
not the
line editor.
grammar. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not a line editor, not the
Yeah.
commas and grammar and all that. I'm more the
Yeah.
big picture overall. Does this make sense? Is this told the best way? Could we write it a little bit better? And so,
Yeah.
but it's a lot of fun. I love doing it.
Yeah, I think that would probably be if I were going to be an editor, that would be what I would do because, I'm so used to analyzing stories.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was telling um Jay before you got on, I was telling Kyle that we had a book club group yesterday. It's virtual, and your book would be so great for it. But the book that we read was If We Were Villains, and it's all takes place in this
Oh.
theater program. It's going to be a television show, but all of us said, we didn't really care about the characters. We didn't really care
Mhm.
about the story. If it weren't for the book club group, we probably would have thrown the book away or,
Mhm.
put it aside or something. And that's kind of sad. And I said, why did they even publish this book? Because nobody's really sympathetic. There's
Hmm.
hardly any sympathetic people in it. So, yeah, it's always interesting editors' points of view about stories. Yeah.
We were
Well,
we were blessed to work with a content editor who his name's David Webb. He got us. It was really fun to kind of work with somebody that understood what we were trying to accomplish,
Mhm.
understood, the importance of voice and tone, and
Mhm.
and was able to really, really help our story move along in such a way where it balanced out a lot of the narrative and a lot of the
Yeah.
moving parts, action, and he even tried to write a joke or two that I think we approved one of them at least, right, Kyle?
yeah, we did. Yeah, yeah, we did one or two probably.
Uh, That's cool.
Well, one of the things you're talking about characters that I sort of felt like for some people, a barrier to entry to getting into a book or a story sometimes is when there's a lot of characters. Like if you're
Mhm.
going to read a Game of Thrones, or if you're going to read Dune or some of these, vast stories,
Right.
you gotta bring your lunch pail, because there's so many characters. You gotta
Yeah.
really strap on to get ready to, to learn and just get
Mhm.
into the world. Well, one of the cool things about our story is if you're a fan of music and even
Mhm.
beyond rock and roll, we have other genres that are represented. But if you're a fan of music,
Mhm.
you've probably heard of a lot of the characters in our story, and you may not know
Right.
everything about them. You may not know their history or their background or every
Mhm.
song they've ever published or written. That's not the point. It's to the point is you got an image in your mind of what Elvis Presley looks like, or Kurt
Mhm.
Cobain, or someone who's in our story, and that kind of helps you break that barrier of entry because there's a lot of
Right.
characters in our story. There's a lot of people who
Mhm.
who fit this bill of dead rock stars. And so that's one of the things I hope that people have enjoyed as they've read our book is they've like, oh yeah, I'm a fan of that musician, and it's cool to see
Mhm.
him do something different, live on in another way. It's kind of fun.
Right. Yes, that is cool. Yeah, you're right. Excuse me. Finding a way to get the reader hooked on and invested in the characters. That's
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't read very many books that I have said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I can't read this." I usually try to slog through, but and sometimes it gets better as it goes along. But
Yeah.
yeah, you're right. Character, and I guess since I'm used to be an actor and I directed plays and stuff, I'm really into character a
Mm.
lot. That the stories has to have good characters for me, or I'm like, okay, if it's just about the plot, I'm not really that interested. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's something we really stress too, is desire to, to have characters that are relatable, characters that,
Mhm.
to some degree or another are likable. In our first
Mhm.
draft of our book, our main character is a guy named Cole Denton. He is actually
Right.
not a dead rock star. He's a technology star, and the dead rock stars bring him onto the team to help them solve a puzzle, solve a mystery that they're ill equipped to do on their own. And in our
Um,
first draft, after we had some people read it, they were like, "I don't think Cole's very likable." And so we had to go back, and now part of me bristled at that because I was like, "Have you ever met an IT person? Not often are they, the most likable people in the world. They're usually an acquired taste,
right.
um, but so we decided we'd go back, we'd listen to our critics, and we rewrote Cole. I think he's much more likable now. He
I don't know
still
that
is. Yeah, go ahead,
What?
I
Jay.
don't know that I'd say we totally rewrote him. I would say we just
No, you
softened a
softened.
couple of things that it's fine because I mean again tone is king for us. And
Yeah.
while I would say that this is not a hugely character, I mean it's hard to like as far as character development goes, we get to see Cole kind of discover this world, much like
Mhm.
Harry Potter in book one, kind of a thing
Mhm.
where he's
Mhm.
playing catch up, and so you get to see that, and you get to watch him kind of come into his own. But the other ones, there's some character development in the sense of it's been 20 years since Elvis passed away in our story. Our
Right.
story takes place in 1999. So
Mhm.
you get to start to daydream, what do these people look like after 20
Right.
years or 30 years of being
Right.
gone, and who are they now? Or what if it's been 5 or
Yeah.
6 years and they were kind of known for a certain thing now?
Mhm.
Who are they now? And we had a lot of fun kind of dreaming up those characters from that perspective.
That's cool. Yeah. Well, we have about 5 minutes left. You guys, either of you have anything you want to say else that I didn't ask or that you want to say about your book or your writing process or anything?
Yeah, I mean, we'd love for your listeners to discover our book. You can get it from us from our website, deadrockstarsbook.com. You can get autographed copies there. You get shirts, you get posters. We've got merch. If you would like it, we've
That's
got it.
cool.
But you can find it anywhere books are sold online, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, wherever. But what we've really been encouraging folks to do, if you have a local bookstore that you love, that you support, that you want to, keep going strong, go in there and order it from your local bookstore, and they can get it for you, because it is available everywhere books are sold. Morgan James Publishers is our publisher, and yeah, they can get it to you. So if you really want to help your mom and pop or your local bookstore, that's available. Do it that way.
That's
And
cool.
I would just say if you need a book or a story that is fun,
Yeah.
which is sometimes what we need. Sometimes we don't
That's
need all the
true.
heavy. Sometimes we just need something that's fun.
Yeah.
It's like a good sorbet between meals, you know?
Yeah. Right.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with sorbet. And so we're serving up some pop culture sorbet for your palate to be cleansed, and
That's cool.
you should go enjoy it.
That's really cool. Oh, thank you both for being my guests. It's been so fun.
Yeah, we've loved
We've
being
had a
here
great
and
time. Yeah.
getting to know you. It's been awesome.
I hope you enjoyed the show. If you like what you heard, please share it with a friend and give us a rating and or review on your favorite podcast app. It will help people find us. I invite you to join my Patreon community at patreon.com/storypower, all one word. Or if you like, you can subscribe to Story Power on Apple Podcasts. It's my aim to build a community where we discuss the stories we love and talk about what we learned from them. I offer extra audio content and story suggestions to my patrons on both platforms. Remember, as Philip Pullman said, after nourishment, shelter, and companionship, stories are the thing we need most in the world. Let's spread the story love. Until next time, this is Lucinda Sage-Midgorden. Thanks for listening.